Behold one of the most absurd articles you will ever see from the week. Why are Republicans so concerned about grooming? I just want to pause real quick.
What a great question.
This headline should make it clear to any and everyone that there are two distinct universes that exist in terms of morality. There is no conservative, post-liberal, libertarian, civil libertarian, whatever, who would question why grooming is bad. But apparently, to the establishment left, to the corporate left, Democrat, whatever, and many leftists who would defend this, they're outright just like, why are you mad about your kids being groomed?
Yeah.
The morality is just it's parallel realities.
The most charitable possible interpretation you can give to this article is that he's essentially saying that this grooming isn't happening and it's moral hysteria, right? And that seems to be what he delineates in this article. So yeah, here's the question: why would Republicans be concerned about grooming? Is it the case that Florida tried to pass or did pass a parental rights and education bill that said you can't talk to 4 to 8-year-olds about sexuality, and then tell them don't tell your parents after you have a conversation with them about sexuality and perverted ideas, and then the entire media said that was wrong and we should oppose it? It is. So it's perfectly reasonable.
But let's make sure we preface this with, there was a bill that was passed in Florida. It says classroom instruction on orientation and identity is prohibited kindergarten through 3rd grade or in a manner that is not age appropriate. It further clarifies that in any instance of treatment given to a child for mental, medical, or physical reasons, the parents must be informed, and the school and its employees can't encourage children to withhold information and must provide information to parents on certain issues. The parents have a right to sue. Now, when that happened, what did the establishment media come out and say? Yo, why do you hate gay people?
Yep.
And I was like, whoa, wait, hold on a minute. You know, we're like, hey, we don't like, creepos coming after our kids, and they're like, you hate gay people. It's like,
yep.
That association happened in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it reminds me of, the Kevin Spacey thing when he was, accused of pedophilia, and he was like, let me admit I am a gay man.
What? That's right.
Very bold.
Yes.
Right. Very bold. So this is, I think, they tried what actually was extremely reckless rhetorical gambit, right? Saying
for Spacey, though, it was just assaulting dudes. I don't think they were kids. I think they were like actors.
Teenagers.
Were they underage?
I'm pretty sure, that there was some reports of him trying to seduce underage males.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the case.
Yeah, so that was why it was like I'm going to admit I'm a gay man was such a joke. Right?
Yeah, like everyone's like, did you do it? And he goes, I'm gay.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, dude.
Not responsive, bro.
Don't know what that has to do. So yeah, right. Well, so here's what I would say about this article. I'm not interested in trying to give the benefit of the doubt to people who would call all of us fascists or Nazis or white supremacists. Mm-hmm. So when they read an article that says, why are Republicans so concerned about grooming, do they not realize what they're saying with that headline to the average person?
Yeah.
Does the average person understand they're talking about a semantic debate? And I'm not going to go ahead and assume that. He actually writes in the article that it's hard to know how much of this is sincere hysteria and how much is ugly McCarthyist politics, or how about this dude is so out of touch. The left is so in favor of grooming, they can't see it as grooming or being bad.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think this spawns from guidance counseling in high school. When I went to high school, it was like, if you're getting abused at home, you can come talk to the guidance counselor, and in confidentiality, they'll report it to the police for you, kind of thing. So like your parents aren't going to destroy you for, and that's what I think this mentality is like. If you think you're trans and you're 6, then we don't want, then it's abusive for your parent to tell you it's not mentality, and so they're trying to do this behind the parent's back because they don't want the kid to suffer abuse. But it's not the same thing.
It's not abuse. Look, these parents are going to be with these children for 79 years. Well, probably the parents will die before then, but let's just say average life expectancy,
55 years.
Average, 55 to 60 years, the parents will be with their children their entire lives. How about that? The teachers, 1 year. 1 year. So how about if a 5 to 9-year-old says something, the teacher says, maybe this is something that's best suited for your parents to figure out with you, because they're going to be with you for the next decade. Then, as you go through these issues in school, your parents will be a constant for the entirety of your school career or whatever. Will only be 1 year out of the entirety of it.
And then the kid goes, but I'm afraid to tell my parents. And then so it spawns from that. And the kid's like, well, they're afraid. We can't make them do something they're afraid to do.
And the teacher should say, you should never be scared of your parents.
Yeah, a good teacher would do that.
But if parents are beating their kids, then they should say, we're going to call, child services.
Right. A good faith exception sort of ends up swallowing like the normal behavior. Right? And again, like the arrogance here of these teachers to be like, well, no, I should be able to talk about instruct these kids on sexual orientation, and I should be able to have secret conversations about their gender identity. Like, no. This is not your child. Mm-hmm. There's a parent, and I think it's not a surprise that all these people are like single or childless.
Why are I gotta go at this semantic argument real quick. Obviously, people are going to argue on the left that the article is not suggesting that they don't understand why grooming is bad. They talk about all that stuff in there. The article itself is trying to separate what grooming means into something else.
Yes, that's why it's in quotes.
What they're trying to do is when it's again, I hate saying conservative.
They're trying to redefine it. You're right already.
They're trying to redefine what the word means. When we see photos there's that photo of that little boy with the adult naked man. You remember that one?
Yeah.
And it's like a drag show, and the left was like, this is fine. And I'm like, the dude is buck naked. Or there's the Desmond kid who is stripping on stage. That's just a drag show. I'm like, no, it's not. If anyone who's ever been to across this country and knows what strip clubs are like, there are fully clothed strip clubs where the women can't get naked. There are topless bars and there are fully nude bars. That means strip clubs actually exist where the women just take off their clothes to their underlayers, which is exactly what that little boy was doing. They are doing child stripping, and they're like, how's that grooming? When conservatives, post-liberals, whatever this faction is, says we don't want teachers having conversations about sexual concepts to children, it's just that. Because this is what they're pushing for. When they then come out and say, what could they possibly mean by grooming?
Yeah,
no, they're lying.
It's interesting. They kind of answer their own question here, and I want to make another point first. On this whole point about not being sure how much is sincere hysteria and how much is ugly McCarthyist politics, that's rich coming from a member of the party which spent years calling us Russian agents for disagreeing with them. But
they still do it.
Then they still do. So in this article, he says that this is dishonest because most Americans will hear the term, referring to groomer, and understand it to mean something much more violent than, quote, encouraging kids to question their sexuality in the church, unquote. Here's the thing. If you ask most Americans how they would label an adult encouraging a child to question their sexuality and then telling their child not to speak to their parent about the conversation, they would label that grooming. It is a completely fair term. In fact, it is the most accurate possible term to use in that situation.
You ever watch Law and Order SVU?
Yes.
In the criminal justice system.
That's right. And there are many episodes where there'll be like a child victim, and they'll be like, did anyone tell you not to talk to your parents? Did anyone tell you you won't get in trouble if you tell us? Because groomers go to kids and say, don't tell your parents I told you this.
Yeah, if there's a 16-year-old that comes up to your kid on the sidewalk and tells them, you'd probably see people go irate. But if it's a teacher now all of a sudden, there is an argument that it's okay if it's a teacher doing it and not a 16-year-old neighborhood bully, like weirdo, coming up and doing it on the street. What's the freaking difference, man?
Like, stay mad. The fact that there's conservatives who we have like this rhetorically very potent like description, grooming. And yeah, I mean, I do think there's a connotation to the extent that this article is correct. I think there is a connotation of like sexual predation in it, but that's not the only, that narrow definition is not the only thing that grooming means. It encompasses all this.
The idea of grooming is you start slow. That's the point.
Yeah.
But the issue with this bill in Florida is that when it's literal grooming. It's not conspiracy. And what they're trying to do now is this guy even says, it's QAnon. And then they try saying like, oh, here we go. The Republicans are all QAnon. And it's like, why? And they're like, Republicans are accusing Democrats of being pedophiles. And it's like when, hold on there a minute. When someone comes out and is like, I would prefer it if the teachers didn't have conversations with children about sexual issues and then tell them to keep it a secret. And they go, yo, why do you hate gay people? I'm just like, first of all, what? And why are you defending that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the literal definition, you know what? It's just very, very simple. The left redefines words. And what they're trying to do right here is they're trying to take the word grooming, which is what is happening, and they're trying to take this one piece and move it out and move the goalpost a little bit and be like, oh, no, this isn't really grooming. Republicans are lying because technically if someone's having secret sexual conversations with children, that doesn't count because we're talking about LGBTQIA stuff.
I mean, this is something they always do, right? When it's an epithet that applies to their ideological adversaries, we're going to broaden the definition so that it encompasses their behavior. When it's a definition that applies to our ideological allies, we're going to narrow the definition so it doesn't apply. I mean, racism is the classic example. Like the redefinition of racism is first structural, so it encompasses everything in society, but then prejudice plus power, narrowing it so that when our ideological allies do things that are overtly racist, it actually no longer becomes racist.
No longer applies to them.
Right? Like it's just word games, right? And so, and all of a sudden they're mad that Republicans have a word that is just getting traction. Like, and then the worst thing, we have Washington General type Republicans, like, I don't even call David French a Republican.
Washington General.
Right. But saying like, oh no, we shouldn't use this word. It's like, no, this is one, it's effective, and two, it's perfectly justified.
The funniest thing was, shout out to Robbie Suave from he's from Reason, right? And he said something like, it's weird that people are saying students shouldn't know anything about their teachers' lives, something like that. Was that?
I knew nothing about my teachers' lives, but especially in those ages.
The weirdest sophistry I've ever heard. Like, no one cares. No one is arguing students shouldn't know about their teachers' lives. They're like, I don't care if the kids know the teacher has a boyfriend. I care if the teacher is like, gather around, children, and let me explain to you classroom instruction on these issues, and you're 5 years old.
It's like, I don't know if you've seen recent South Park, but Mr. Garrison has been talking about his gay relationship in the third grade class. Like that's,
he's always done that.
Right. Yeah. Like it's literally but I think that's ultimately what they're trying to justify.
We're South Park.
Yeah.
There's the remember
guys.
the episode where Mr. Garrison he transitions, he becomes a trans woman, and then he goes on a date, and then he comes in, and Mrs. Garrison is all angry because all men are pigs, and then tells them they have to do weekend book report on The Old Man and the Sea. And it was like South Park actually made jokes about the idea that the teacher would be yelling at the kids about sexual personal issues. And that was supposed to be comical in that it's not real life.
I think a lot of kids saw that and it just wrote code in their brain that it was real. That's the problem with parody. And if that cartoon was not a cartoon, was like a real life show, I think people cannot.
It's not the children who are enacting, it's the adults who are enacting.
Tiny kids can't tell the difference between comedy and
okay, well, hold on. You're talking about something totally.
I'm talking about the kids that are now teachers were watching that crap back in the day and thinking it was writing in their brain like,
bro, this is
normal. This is normal.
It was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So they were like 10, but
they're not 20 years.
If that South Park was a real show with real actors,
maybe 16-year-olds.
that scene wouldn't have flown. It would have been shut down by the ACLU or whoever would have went after him hard. But because it's a cartoon, all of a sudden you can do this grotesque comedy. And
I will say one of the weirdest things about South Park is that they have overtly sexual situations between 10-year-olds on that show all the time. I always thought that was weird, but
that's for adults. Like it's a show about kids for adults.
And the kids aren't necessarily meant to be in childish situations. They're often in adult situations. Yeah. Still, I find that weird that it's just a weird circumstance with the show. But considering the show isn't overtly about that, I'm kind of like, whatever.
We got Big Mouth too.
Big Mouth is messed up.
They animate it and it's like, okay, it's just a joke because it's animated, but it's still training people.
When South Park does one joke about Butters and Cartman and it's supposed to be shockingly grotesque and offensive, I'm like, man, they really pushed the line on this one. But the show isn't overtly about this. When Big Mouth is literally a show about children engaging in sexual activities, I'm like, why would someone want to watch that?
You made a great point that it's a show about kids for adults. That's very important. It's like an R-rated cartoon.
Yeah.
But so is Big Mouth, and Big Mouth also is messed up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some things that are so depraved that they shouldn't be on television.
Have you ever seen Big Mouth?
No.
I cannot understand why people are like, I got to tell you, man, like I was saying early on, the moral universes are just distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Mouth is basically a bunch of kids going through puberty, and there's the puberty monster. It's a male and a female, and they're always trying to encourage them to do these things or whatever. I've seen a couple episodes because I went to someone's house who was playing it, and I immediately was like, yo, this is like a nasty show, bro. I don't want to see a show, even if it's cartoon characters. There's like a 12-year-old boy beating it in a bathroom, and that's the joke. I'm like, that's not a joke. That's just gross. Where people want to watch that? Hey, man, look, maybe I'm a square these days.
No,
it's disgusting.
I thought the same thing when I saw that show.
Well, look at Cuties. I think there's a trend here with what they're doing.
Yeah. And they defended that to the death, too. They defended Cuties like crazy.
Yeah, well, and for a little while on the left, they were calling this, pedophilia hysteria, and now we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of that. And what people are concerned about with the response to this bill isn't that it was just some small handful of particularly perverted teachers who took issue with it. It's that the entire dominant media culture came out against it and said, oh, of course adults have the right to have secret conversations about sexual matters with children. That's sick. I
feel
mean,
like-
it's not a moral panic to say that there's something deeply wrong with the social fabric of this country and we need to address it.
It feels like the term groomer has sparked something in people. And I was telling Lydia before, it feels like cold water is splashed on these people's faces, the way they're reacting to it. Like they're shaken, they're afraid, and they're like, why is this even, like the guy's article that we just read, he wasn't saying that the conservatives are wrong for saying grooming. He's like, what's the big deal about it? Like he's genuinely asking the question because he wants to figure it out.
Somebody super chatted us this. They said, why is everyone forgetting about the gay men's chorus? And I was like,
Will convert your children. I was just going to mention that.
and it's like, they said it was, the group defended itself calling the video tongue-in-cheek humor, but it's like, yo, you said we're coming for your children. You think we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked? Funny, justice once you're correct. We'll convert your children, happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you'll barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make them wear pleated pants. We don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair. And then they say, we'll convert your children. Someone's got to teach them not to hate. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. And then they do. And then people are like, please don't. And they're like, you hate gay people.
Yeah, well, or those examples of teachers on TikTok going on about how they are going to educate your child on being non-binary and alternative sexual lifestyles. Can you imagine if some conservative group made this video but about conversion therapy or something?
Or Christian.
It'd be completely deleted off the internet. That would be it.
Where's the Christian version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to teach your children values and make them worship the Lord and all that stuff. They'd freak out.
That'd be
They'd
it.
lose
Yeah.
their minds.
Yeah. No, the reason they're so upset is because people are over the target. They've like accurately taken this sort of like massive amount of like untoward behavior by teachers, by like adults of all kinds, right? That should not be happening, and they've labeled it with something. They branded it, and it's a really, really sticky brand.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.